Here's the thing about 2025. We're living in an era where every game costs $70, season passes are another $30, and half the time you're buying an unfinished product that'll be fixed 6 months later with a day one patch the size of a small country. Everyone's complaining that gaming is too expensive, and honestly, they're not wrong. But here's what nobody talks about. When you find a game that's actually worth that price tag, it justifies the entire hobby. So I did something that felt necessary. I went through every major PS5 game available in 2025 and made a list of the ones that are genuinely worth every dollar you spend on them. No filler, no apologies, no "it'll be good after 3 patches" nonsense. Just complete, polished experiences that deliver exactly what they promise and then some. These are games you can buy today, play today, and feel satisfied with your purchase. This is my breakdown of 19 PS5 games in 2025 that are worth every dollar. And just so we're clear, this list is in no particular order. Game 1 isn't better than Game 19. They're all worth your money for different reasons. These are just the games that made me feel like gaming is still worth the investment. Let's get into it. Sekiro Shadows Dies Twice is From Software at their most focused and uncompromising. This isn't Dark Souls with a new skin. This is a completely different beast built around precision, aggression, and mastering one combat system. You're shinobi in Sengoku-era Japan, and the sword combat is all about posture breaks and deflections. There's no stamina, no builds, no co-op, just you, your katana, and a world that wants you dead. The boss fights are some of the best in any game. Genshido Ashina on top of Ashina Castle, where you're forced to learn perfect deflection timing. Guardian Ape, which has a fake-out second phase that's pure chaos. Ishin, the Sword Saint, the final test that demands everything you've learned. The combat is brutal. One mistake can snowball into death, but when you finally break a boss's posture and land that death blow, it's one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. The world design is gorgeous. Cherry blossoms, temples, burning castles. The DualSense makes every sword clash feel precise, and the load times keep you in the flow. The story is about immortality, duty, and breaking cycles, and it's more coherent than most Souls games. Sekiro is hard, like genuinely hard, but it's fair, and if you're willing to learn its rhythms, it's one of the most rewarding experiences on PS5. Worth every dollar if you're up for the challenge. Elden Ring is From Software taking the Souls formula and exploding it into a massive open world. And somehow it works perfectly. You're dropped into the lands between with zero handholding, and the game trusts you to figure it out. The freedom is intoxicating. You can go anywhere, tackle bosses in any order, build your character however you want. It's punishing, cryptic, and absolutely brilliant. The mandatory bosses are unforgettable. Margit the Fell Omen teaching you humility at the gates of Stormvale. Star Scourge Radahn's meteor attack that obliterates you if you're not ready. Melania, Blade of Miquella, who will destroy you hundreds of times until you master her patterns. The world design is stunning. Crumbling castles, underground cities, alien landscapes that feel genuinely otherworldly. Riding Torrent across open fields while discovering ruins, caves, and secrets is one of the purest joys in modern gaming. The DualSense adds subtle feedback to every weapon, every spell, every dodge roll. The load times are fast enough that dying doesn't break momentum. You're back in the fight within seconds. The story is classic From Software cryptic nonsense, but the environmental storytelling and item descriptions reward curiosity. Elden Ring is massive, difficult, and occasionally frustrating, but it's also one of the most rewarding single-player experiences you can have. If you've never played a Souls game, this is the one to start with. Baldur's Gate 3 on PS5 is proof that you can port a massive, complex RPG to console and lose none of the magic. Larian optimized this thing beautifully. Loading is fast, the controls work perfectly with a DualSense, and the scope is staggering. Every choice matters, every conversation branches, and every character has depth you won't fully explore in one playthrough. This is a game where you can spend 100+ hours and still discover new paths, new endings, new consequences. The combat is turn-based tactical perfection. Positioning matters, environmental hazards matter, and creative use of spells can turn impossible fights into victories. The fight in the Goblin Camp where you can talk, sneak, or murder your way to victory. The confrontation at Moonrise Towers where your choices from Act 1 come back to haunt you. The final battle against the Absolute where every companion you've recruited can tip the scales. The dice rolling mechanic, enhanced by haptic feedback, makes every skill check feel tense. The romance options are genuinely well written, the companion quests are emotionally engaging, and the world reacts to your decisions in ways that feel organic. The voice acting is stellar, the musical score is epic, and the sheer amount of reactivity is staggering. BG3 on PS5 isn't a compromise, it's the full experience, running smoothly on hardware that can finally handle it. If you love RPGs, if you want player agency, this is essential. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is the definitive version of one of the most divisive and brilliant games ever made. The story is brutal, morally complex, and emotionally exhausting. Ellie's revenge quest against Abby spirals into a cycle of violence that questions everything you think you know about justice. The performances are incredible, the writing is mature, and the pacing is deliberate. This is not a feel-good game. It's a tragedy. The standout moments are seared into my memory. The opening sequence that sets the entire revenge plot in motion. The aquarium flashback with Abby and Owen that humanizes her. The theater confrontation where two perspectives collide violently. The final fight on the beach where you're so emotionally destroyed that you just want it to end. The remastered version adds visual upgrades, faster load times, and DualSense integration that makes every gunshot, every punch, every infected encounter feel visceral. The gameplay is peak Naughty Dog: stealth, resource management, brutal melee combat. The Rat King encounter in the hospital basement is one of the most terrifying sequences in any game. The open-world Seattle sections give you space to breathe and explore. Part 2 is long, 25-30 hours, and it earns every minute. It's not for everyone. The story choices will frustrate some, but it's a complete, uncompromising vision that treats players like adults. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the middle chapter of the FF7 Remake trilogy, and it's the most ambitious, creative, and emotionally charged JRPG I've played in years. The world opens up massively from the first game. You're exploring multiple regions, riding chocobos, tackling side content that's actually fun, and watching Cloud's mental state slowly unravel. The story takes risks, subverts expectations, and commits to choices that will divide fans, but it's bold, and I respect that. The combat is peak action RPG. You're swapping between characters mid-battle, chaining abilities, exploiting weaknesses, and the synergy attacks between party members are satisfying as hell. The boss fights are spectacular, battling a Midgar Zolom in the swamps, the rematch with Rude and Reno on the cargo ship, the absolute chaos of the Temple of the Ancient sequence. The set pieces rival any AAA blockbuster, and the musical score is phenomenal. Remixes of classic tracks that hit harder with full orchestration. The emotional moments land. Aerith's character development, Cloud's deteriorating grip on reality, Tifa trying to hold everyone together. It's all handled with care and nuance. The side content, Queen's Blood card game, chocobo racing, party banter during exploration, adds personality. The ending is divisive and will leave you with more questions than answers, but that's intentional. Rebirth is a game that trusts you to think, to speculate, to care. It's long, 60+ hours, but it earns every minute. God of War Ragnarok is the conclusion to Kratos and Atreus' Norse saga, and it's one of the most emotionally satisfying sequels I've ever played. The story picks up right where the 2018 game left off, and the stakes are immediate. Ragnarok is coming, the gods are hunting you, and the relationship between father and son is fracturing under the weight of destiny. The writing is phenomenal, the performances are awards-worthy, and the pacing never lets up. The standout moments are everywhere. The opening fight against Thor, where you realize this isn't just a boss, this is a character with depth and motivation. The journey to Asgard, where you're walking through golden halls while Odin plays mind games. The final battle, which I won't spoil, but it's emotionally devastating and perfectly earned. The combat is refined from the first game, faster, more fluid, with new weapons like the Draupnir spear that add variety. The DualSense makes every axe throw, every shield bash, every punch feel weighty and impactful. The companion quests flesh out characters like Freya, Mimir, and Brock, and the optional bosses, the Berserkers, are genuinely challenging. The world design is stunning. The 9 realms each have distinct aesthetics, and exploring them feels rewarding. Ragnarok is a masterclass in sequel design. It builds on everything that worked, fixes what didn't, and delivers a story that feels complete. Street Fighter VI is Capcom's return to form for the franchise, and it's the most accessible, polished, and content-rich fighting game they've ever made. The core gameplay is classic Street Fighter. Footsies, spacing, mind games, but the drive system adds new layers of depth. You're managing drive gauge for parries, cancels, and reversals, and it creates this risk-reward dynamic that keeps matches tense. The DualSense adds subtle feedback to every hit, every parry, every drive rush. The World Tour mode is surprisingly good. You're creating a custom character, exploring Metro City, training with classic characters, and fighting random NPCs. It's goofy, self-aware, and way more fun than it has any right to be. The story follows Luke and the cast dealing with a new threat, and while it's not groundbreaking, it's entertaining. The online rollback netcode is flawless. Matches feel smooth, ranked play is addictive, and the lobbies are creative. The roster is diverse and balanced, with DLC characters adding even more variety. The visual style is bold and colorful, and the animations are fluid. Street Fighter VI is a fighting game that respects both newcomers and veterans. Modern controls make it approachable. Classic controls preserve depth. If you've ever been curious about fighting games, this is the entry point. If you're a veteran, this is the SF game you've been waiting for. Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition is Guerrilla Games taking everything from the first game and expanding it in every direction. Aloy's journey westward is filled with emotional beats, massive robot dinosaur fights, and world-ending stakes that keep the momentum high. The Complete Edition includes the Burning Shores DLC, which adds a new area, story content, and some of the most visually impressive set pieces on PS5. The standout moments are cinematic as hell. The opening battle in the desert with the bristleback stampede, the underwater ruins of Las Vegas where you're exploring flooded casinos while dodging snap moths. The Burning Shores DLC adds a volcanic archipelago with flying mounts and a boss fight against the Horus that's genuinely spectacular. The final battle against Spectre Prime in the base game, where you're using every weapon and skill you've learned, is epic. The DualSense makes every bowstring pull, every tripwire snap, and every machine takedown feel tactile. The visuals are some of the best on PS5. Performance mode runs at 60 FPS and still looks better than most games' fidelity modes. The world is massive, but fast travel is instant thanks to the SSD. Forbidden West proves that open-world games don't need to feel sluggish anymore. This is exploration done right, and the Complete Edition is the definitive way to experience it. Cyberpunk 2077 had one of the worst launches in gaming history, but in 2025, after years of patches and the Phantom Liberty expansion, it's finally the game it should have been at launch. The Ultimate Edition on PS5 runs smoothly, looks incredible, and Night City is one of the most detailed open worlds ever created. The story of V trying to survive with a dying engram in their head is emotionally gripping, and the branching paths lead to genuinely different endings. The Phantom Liberty expansion is phenomenal. You're working with a rogue FIA agent in Dogtown, a walled-off district filled with espionage, betrayal, and moral gray areas. The new characters, Solomon Reed, voiced by Idris Elba, Songbird, are excellently written, and the ending choices are brutal. Do you save yourself or help someone escape their handler? There are no good answers. The base game's main quests, the heist, the Johnny Silverhand relationship, the final mission are all elevated by performances that make you care. The combat has been overhauled. Net running, melee builds, stealth, gunplay, it all feels refined and balanced. The skill trees have been reworked, the vehicle handling is improved, and the AI is smarter. The DualSense adds feedback to hacking, driving, and shooting. Night City at night is one of the most atmospheric settings in gaming. Neon lights, rain-soaked streets, crowds of NPCs. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition is proof that redemption arcs are possible. If you wrote it off at launch, give it another chance. Demon Souls is what happens when you take a PS3 cult classic and rebuild it from the ground up for hardware that can finally do it justice. Bluepoint didn't just remaster this game, they reimagined it. Boletaria looks like a painting you can walk through, and the lighting is so moody and atmospheric that even dying feels cinematic. The DualSense adds this layer of immersion where you feel every sword clang, every shield block, every arrow release with terrifying precision. But here's where the next-gen feeling really hits. The load times are gone. You die, and you will die, and you're back in the action in under 3 seconds. No punishment, no waiting, just pure, okay, let's try that again energy. It turns one of the most brutal games ever made into something almost addictive because the flow never breaks. The Tower Knight fight, where this massive armored giant is stomping toward you and you feel every footstep through the controller, that's the moment you realize this isn't just a remake, it's a showcase. The boss fights are legendary. The Flame Lurker chase through burning halls, the Dragon God arena where you're running between cover while fireballs rain down, the final battle with King Allant in his crumbling throne room. It's hard as hell, sure, but it's also one of the most rewarding experiences on PS5. If you want to feel like you're playing something that could only exist on this console, start here. Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth is the latest entry in the Yakuza Like a Dragon series, and it's one of the most heartfelt, absurd, and engaging RPGs you can play. You're playing as Ichiban Kasuga, now in Hawaii, dealing with personal drama, criminal conspiracies, and the wildest side content imaginable. The turn-based combat returns from Yakuza Like a Dragon, refined and expanded with new jobs, abilities, and team synergies that make battles feel strategic and satisfying. The story is peak Yakuza, emotional family drama mixed with over-the-top crime intrigue. Ichiban's search for his mother, Kiryu's farewell tour dealing with terminal illness, the clash between old-school Yakuza values and modern crime. The writing balances heartbreak and humor perfectly. One moment, you're crying over Kiryu's bucket list. The next, you're managing a resort, racing go-karts, or fighting a mascot in a Pokemon parody. The side content is where this series shines. Dating sims, baseball management, karaoke, classic Sega arcade games, it's endless. The sub-stories range from hilarious to touching, and the world feels alive with personality. Infinite Wealth is long, 70+ hours if you do everything, but it never feels padded. Every system has depth, every character matters, and the conclusion to Kiryu's story is handled with respect and emotion. If you want a single-player RPG that respects your investment, this is it. RE4 Remake takes one of the greatest games ever made and reimagines it for the PS5 without losing what made it special. The atmosphere is heavier, the tension is thicker, and the survival horror elements are more pronounced. The village fight, the El Gigante encounters, the castle infiltration, it's all here, refined and elevated by modern tech. The instant load times mean you die and you're back in seconds. No waiting, just pure momentum. The DualSense does incredible work here. You feel Leon's heartbeat through the controller when enemies close in. Reloading the shotgun has this satisfying mechanical feedback. Chainsaws revving send vibrations that genuinely make you panic. The regenerators in the lab, the lake monster ambush, Krauser's knife fight in the rain. Every iconic moment is enhanced by tech that makes it feel more real, more dangerous. The boss fights are spectacular. El Gigante slamming the ground, Salazar's final form grotesque, the Verdugo stalking you through the sewers. The adaptive difficulty keeps things tense without feeling cheap, and the parry system adds a layer of skill to combat. RE4 Remake proves you can honor a classic while making something that feels entirely new. This is how you do a remake. Respectful, but willing to take risks, worth every dollar for both newcomers and veterans. Death Stranding Director's Cut is Kojima doing Kojima things. But the PS5 version adds enough new content and technical polish to make it the definitive edition. The DualSense work is phenomenal. You feel every step across rocky terrain, every raindrop, every piece of cargo shifting on your back. The adaptive triggers give feedback when you balance, and the haptics make traversal, yes, walking, feel strangely immersive. The new content, including racing missions, firing range challenges, and additional story beats, adds variety to the core delivery loop. But the real upgrade is visual. 60 FPS makes the entire experience feel smoother, and the already gorgeous landscapes look even better with improved lighting. The BT encounters, where you're sneaking through timefall rain while ghosts hunt you, are still some of the tensest moments in gaming. The late-game cliff battles, where you're fighting through war-torn memories, benefit massively from improved performance. Death Stranding isn't for everyone. It's slow, it's weird, it's extremely Kojima. The story gets convoluted, the pacing drags in the middle, and the gameplay loop of deliver packages sounds boring on paper, but in practice, it's meditative, strategic, and oddly satisfying. Building infrastructure, connecting regions, and helping other players through shared structures creates this sense of collaborative world building that's genuinely unique. If you bounced off it before, this version might change your mind.
Spider-Man 2 is what happens when a developer takes everything that worked in the first two games and says, let's make it bigger, faster, and more emotional. You're playing as both Peter and Miles. The story actually justifies having two Spider-Men, and the web slinging has never felt better. The addition of web wings turns traversal into this flow state where you're gliding between skyscrapers at ridiculous speeds, and the PS5 handles it without a single stutter or load screen. The Venom arc is where this game earned its price tag. You're not just fighting a villain, you're watching Peter lose himself to the symbiote, and the performances are incredible. The moment where you're playing as Venom, ripping through enemies with zero mercy, is visceral and uncomfortable in the best way. Then there's the Peter versus Miles fight in the third act, where you're swapping between perspectives mid-battle, and the emotional weight of two brothers fighting hits hard. The set pieces are summer blockbuster moments, collapsing amusement parks, symbiote-infested streets, boss fights on crumbling bridges. The DualSense makes every web swing, every punch, every symbiote tendril feel distinct. It's not perfect, some side missions feel repetitive, and the open-world collectibles are standard fare. But the main story, the character work, and the sheer joy of being Spider-Man make this worth every penny. Insomniac delivered a superhero game that respects your time.
Alan Wake 2 is the most visually stunning game I've ever played, and I'm not exaggerating. Remedy built this specifically for current-gen hardware, and it shows in every frame. The lighting, the reflections, the way shadows move. It's borderline photorealistic, and the atmosphere is so oppressive that even walking through a forest feels dangerous. This is horror done right, slow burn, psychological, and deeply unsettling. The dual narrative structure is brilliant. You're swapping between FBI agent Saga Anderson investigating murders in Bright Falls, and Alan trapped in the dark place trying to write his way out. Saga sections are grounded detective work, crime scenes, interviews, connecting clues in her mind place. Alan's sections are surreal nightmares where reality warps, the city shifts, and nothing is stable. The overlap sequences where both realities collide are some of the most creative and disturbing moments in modern horror. The DualSense enhances the dread. You feel Alan's typewriter keys clicking. You feel Saga's flashlight pulsing as the battery drains. The combat is tense and resource-driven, forcing you to make every shot count. The story is complex, layered, and rewards attention. This isn't a game you play distracted. Alan Wake 2 is a mature, cerebral horror experience that couldn't exist on last-gen hardware. If you want something that treats you like an adult and respects the medium, this is essential. Gran Turismo 7 on PS5 is the most next-gen a racing game has ever felt, and it's not even close. The DualSense integration is so detailed that you can feel the difference between asphalt, gravel, and wet track surfaces through the controller. The adaptive triggers simulate brake resistance and throttle control. You feel the ABS kicking in, you feel the tires losing grip, and it fundamentally changes how you drive. This isn't a gimmick, this is game-changing feedback that makes you a better racer. The campaign, the cafe menu progression, takes you through automotive history, collecting iconic cars and racing them across legendary tracks. The license tests are challenging and rewarding, forcing you to master precision driving. The endurance races, like the 24 Hours of Le Mans challenge, test your patience and skill. The ray trace replays are jaw-dropping, watching your race with photorealistic reflections and lighting that looks like a car commercial. The always online requirement frustrated people at launch, and the post-launch economy changes were controversial. That's fair criticism. But the core racing experience is phenomenal, and if you love cars, GT7 is a love letter to automotive culture. The load times are instant, so you're never waiting between races. You'll finish the campaign with a garage full of dream cars and a newfound appreciation for racing sims.
Armored Core 6 is From Software doing what they do best, creating a brutally challenging game with deep systems and incredible boss fights, but this time with giant mechs. You're a mercenary pilot customizing your AC, Armored Core, and taking on contracts across a war-torn planet. The customization is absurdly deep. Every weapon, every part, every build changes how your mech handles. You can go lightweight and fast, heavy and tanky, or balanced and versatile. The boss fights are where this game earns its price. Battling the Baltius, a flying fortress that rains death from above while you're dodging missile barrages, fighting the Ibis Series ACs where you're dueling other pilots in high-speed aerial combat. The final mission sequence which throws everything at you at once and demands perfection. The DualSense makes every boost, every weapon fire, every impact feel weighty and mechanical. The story is told through mission briefings and environmental storytelling, and it's more engaging than you'd expect. Corporate greed, mercenary morality, and the cost of war. It's all there if you pay attention. The difficulty is unforgiving, especially early on. But once you understand the systems, it clicks. Armored Core 6 is not for everyone, but if you want a mech game with depth and challenge, this is the best one in years. The Last of Us Part 1 is the definitive version of one of the greatest games ever made, and the PS5 remake adds enough polish to justify a revisit. Joel and Ellie's journey across post-apocalyptic America is emotionally devastating, and experiencing it in one sitting makes the story hit even harder. The remake adds visual upgrades, improved AI, faster load times, and DualSense integration that makes every gunshot and crafted item feel tactile. The moments that stay with you, the opening sequence that sets the entire tone, the giraffe scene in Salt Lake City that gives you a moment of peace before the storm, the winter chapter where you're playing as Ellie, hunting and surviving alone, the final hospital sequence where Joel makes the choice that defines him. The performances are incredible, the pacing is near perfect, and the world building is so detailed that every environment tells a story. The combat is tense and resource-driven, forcing you to make every billet count. Stealth feels dangerous. One mistake and you're overwhelmed. The clicker encounters never stop being terrifying, and the human enemies are just as deadly. If you've never played The Last of Us, this is the version to experience. If you have, the visual upgrades and PS5 features make it worth revisiting. Either way, set aside time and let this story wreck you. Helldivers 2 is proof that you don't need a massive budget to make a game feel premium. You just need great design and systems that work. This is a third-person co-op shooter where you're dropping onto hostile planets, fighting bugs and robots, calling in airstrikes, and trying not to blow up your teammates. The PS5's SSD means lobbies load fast, missions start instantly, and there's zero downtime between chaos. The DualSense makes every weapon feel distinct, and the adaptive triggers give weight to heavy weapons. The best moments are the emergent ones. You call in an orbital strike, your friend doesn't move in time, and suddenly you're scrambling to revive them while a horde closes in. You're defending a control point with turrets and mortars, and the screen is filled with explosions and screaming. The Bug Planet missions, where you're fighting massive alien swarms through acid rain, are pure adrenaline. The robot missions, where mechs and drones rain death from above, force you to play smart and coordinate. It's a live service game, which means it'll evolve over time, but
but the core gameplay loop is so satisfying that I keep coming back. And at its price point, it's one of the best values on PS5. If you have friends to play with, this is essential. Just don't blame me when your squad stops trusting you with explosives. Look, this list is subjective, and I'm sure I missed someone's favorite game. Maybe you think I'm crazy for not including your favorite, or maybe you're mad I put Helldivers 2 first when it's a random list. That's fine. Gaming is personal, and what resonates with me might not hit the same for you. The point is, these 19 games in 2025 are worth every dollar you spend on them. No regrets, no buyer's remorse, just quality experiences. So, here's the question. Which game on this list do you think is the best value? Did I sleep on something you loved? Are you planning to grab any of these? Let me know in the comments. And if you're sitting there with a backlog of unplayed games wondering what to tackle next, hopefully this video gives you a starting point. Also, if your bank account is crying after watching this because you just added 5 games to your cart, I'm sorry, but also, you're welcome. If this video helped you figure out what's actually worth your time and money in 2025, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll keep making these as long as you keep watching. Now, go play something that actually respects you as a player.